The World Report on NewsX World. We start this with some breaking news. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, are preparing to call up approximately 70,000 reservists following the joint US-Israel attack on Iran. The decision comes as tensions in the region continue to rise in the wake of the military strikes. According to reports, the call-up is expected to bolster Israel's defense capabilities in light of the escalation situation. Furthermore, military officials are bracing for further developments with the possibility of additional calls for military support. We have some more breaking news coming into you now. At least 40 people were killed following a strike in a girls' school in southern Iran, according to state media reports. The attack took place in Minab, located in Hormozgan province, with 45 others reported injured in the strike. The victims were primarily students, though the full details of the casualties have yet to be confirmed. The strike follows heightened tensions in the region after recent attacks launched by Israel and the United States, which have contributed to a volatile security situation. This attack adds to the growing list of civilian casualties in the ongoing regional conflict, underscoring the rising risks faced by vulnerable populations in the Middle East. We are now being joined by Xavier Abu Eid, who is a Middle East expert, joining us from Palestine. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World and for all these breaking updates that are coming in linked to Israel, US and Iran. As we heard, that 40 people have unfortunately been killed in a school from attacks. Now, what can you tell us about this rising escalation going on now and how it's now getting worse and the build-up of it all in the Middle East?
Thank you. I would just try to put things in context, understand that this is an act of aggression. You don't need to like the Iranian government in order to understand that what has been conducted today by Israel and the US is an act that undermines international law. There is no Security Council resolution in support of what is taking place now. And as we heard from the Omani foreign minister, the mediator on the nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran, they were just 24 hours away from an agreement. So in other words, here we are not even talking about the possibility of any country claiming to try to defend their own security. Here, what we are talking about is an act of aggression that is taking the whole region into an escalation that doesn't serve anyone. And we should remember that all countries in this region, with the exception of Israel, were strongly lobbying against this attack.
And we have heard that Israel Defense Forces have called up approximately 70,000 reservists following the joint US-Israel attack in Iran. How this is obviously sending a clear message that this isn't going to end anytime soon. What do you think of them of this happening, calling up 70,000?
They also have thousands of soldiers already busy here with the occupation of the West Bank, as well as with the continuous attacks against Gaza. We should remember that here we are not absent from the acts of aggression of the Israeli occupation. And another important element is that whether Israel wants to attack another country or not, I would say that one of the first points that the international community should care about is about the security and the safety of over 3 million Palestinians here in the occupied West Bank. We have no shelters, we have no sirens, we have no warnings, absolutely nothing here. But Israel, which in theory, as the occupying power, is in charge of the security of people here, they truly don't care. So calling up another 70,000 soldiers, reservists into the Israeli army is something that will play alongside what Israel seeks in terms of regional escalation. Let's remember they are also attacking Lebanon at the same time. So it's a very difficult and complicated situation for the whole region.
Thank you, Xavier. Please don't go anywhere, as we'll be joining back with you soon. We've got some more breaking news coming in. Several oil majors and top trading houses have suspended crude oil and fuel shipments via the Strait of Hormuz amid ongoing US and Israeli attacks on Iran and Tehran's retaliation. According to trading sources, shipments will remain halted for several days as the situation continues to escalate. The suspension has added further uncertainty to global oil markets, with shipping routes in the region increasingly impacted. Furthermore, concerns over rising tensions and potential disruptions continue to grow. Meanwhile, authorities are closely monitoring the situation. We have got some more breaking news for you. The UAE authorities have said that its air defense systems successfully intercepted a second wave of Iranian missile strikes targeting the country. The Ministry of Defense confirmed that the missiles were intercepted before they could cause significant damage. Fragments of the intercepted missiles fell across several areas of Abu Dhabi, including Saadiyat Island, Kafilia City, Bani Yas, Mohammed bin Zayed City, and Al Falah. However, authorities have confirmed that there were no reported injuries or damage in these locations. This latest wave of missile strikes follows an earlier attack that resulted in the death of one civilian and several others injured. The UAE has condemned the attacks and reiterated its readiness to defend its territory against any further threats. We are now being joined by Roshan Gawani, who is an anchor and correspondent for NewsX World, joining us from the newsroom. Thank you, Roshan, for joining us here for these breaking news. Now, as we know, there has been previous strikes, as we've just said, has killed one civilian, and now there's been even more. What more can you tell us about the second wave of strikes?
Yeah, essentially with regards to the strikes, Ellie, airlines have canceled almost 40% of flights to Israel and 6.7% of flights to the broader region. This comes as no surprise. Of course, that is unfortunate news with regards to that civilian who was essentially struck down by that missile and the strike. Now, out of the 107 flights to Israel that have been scheduled, 40 have been canceled. Data from the UK-based analytics firm showed 232 flights out of the 3,422 flights scheduled for the region were canceled. Of course, travel advisories indicate that citizens in those regions from other countries should be evacuated, or they should definitely call a helpline or email a source of interest to them, to helping them to essentially get out of the region. But of course, it will be difficult with the airlines having canceled all the flights. Back to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Roshan. Please stay with us, as we'll be back with you very shortly. We now have some more breaking news. Airlines have cancelled almost 40% of flights to Israel and 6.7% of flights across the broader region. According to reports from UK-based Surium, 40 out of 107 flights scheduled to Israel have been cancelled. Additionally, 232 flights have been cancelled out of 3,422 flights scheduled across the region, which includes Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Iran, Oman, Israel, Jordan, and Bahrain. Further disruptions are expected as the situation develops, with the region's aviation sector facing mounting challenges. We're now being rejoined again by Roshan in the newsroom. Thank you, Roshan, for joining us back here for this development. So as we've just heard, there's many flight disruptions being cancelled, delayed. What more can you tell us about this situation?
Yeah, Ellie, I think essentially the potential for a regional war is what all of this indicates, right? All those countries that you just mentioned, Jordan, Kuwait, essentially the UAE, what Iran is doing is they want a definitive answer on the fact that what they have set out to do will take place, right? And they want to protect their nation, they want to protect their interests. But of course, with the Israel and US alliance, this might be very difficult. Trump has his own initiative, and of course, Iran has their own initiative. So how this will all play out, in my mind, is the fact that a regional war will take place. Back to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Roshan. Again, please stay with us. Some more breaking news for you now. Bahrain has announced the evacuation of residents from a neighborhood housing the headquarters of the US Navy's 5th Fleet after it was targeted by Iranian missiles earlier today. The country's Ministry of Interior confirmed the missile strike in the Jafar area, urging citizens and residents to cooperate with authorities during this evacuation process. In a statement, the ministry called for calm and emphasized that the evacuation was a precautionary measure following the attack. No casualties have been reported so far, but the missile strike marks an alarming escalation in the ongoing tensions in the Gulf region, particularly involving Iran and its advisories. We're now being rejoined again by Roshan. Thank you for rejoining us back here for this latest development. Now, as we know earlier on, there have been some strikes in Bahrain and from Iran, and now they're saying for their citizens and residents to take shelter. What do you think about this situation, and is it getting increasingly more severe as more countries are having to tell their people that they need to take cover?
Yeah, Ellie, the tensions are definitely rising, right? That's exactly what we're talking about right now. Let me give you some context as to how far or how high the tensions can rise. Iran has called on the United Nations to hold an emergency meeting. If the international community does not respond to the aggression, it will be the end of international institutions. Now, this is a quote from Iran itself. So what is that saying exactly? That Iran will not stop today. These attacks on Iran from Israel today were a surprise. This is part of a 4-day strike. And after this, it may extend. So yes, those civilians should take shelter. For how long? We're not sure right now. Back to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Roshan. Please, again, stay with us as we'll join back with you shortly. There is some more breaking news coming in. Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Sudaidi has expressed dismay over the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. He emphasized that neither the United States' interests nor global peace are being served by the escalation. Al-Busaidi called on the US to avoid further involvement in the ongoing conflict. The statement reportedly comes amid escalating tensions in US-Iran relations, with Oman urging for calm diplomatic solutions. We have some more breaking news coming in. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held a phone call with his Iranian counterpart Abbas Araghchi, where he condemned what Russia's foreign ministry has said was an unprovoked armed attack by the US and Israel on Iran, and urged an immediate halt to the strikes. More breaking news for you. According to reports, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has expressed strong support for the United States in preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Carney has reportedly emphasized Canada's commitment to international peace and security, stating that Iran's regime must not be allowed to escalate threats further. We're now being joined by Dan Perry, who's an international affairs expert, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us here today on NewsX World as we're coming in with these breaking news, what's going on. First off, as we know, Oman has been a mediator in these talks between the US and Iran, and now obviously the situations have intensified with what's being broken out today. What more can you tell us about this, and how much it's escalating into further regions in the Gulf?
Well, Iran has and can be expected to continue to strike at U.S. assets throughout the Gulf, and so obviously everyone is on maximal alert. There were some missiles fired already and some interceptions that I've seen video of already. We're only at the beginning. Everything erupted some 6 hours ago, but I would say that this, at the very least, can be expected to last some days. And there is something of a surprise today in the comments by President Trump, because the speech he gave was a regime change speech. I mean, he spoke at length about the crimes of the Iranian regime in 47 years of its benighted existence. He called on the people of Iran to take over their country once the war ends, which suggests very much that a goal of the war is to weaken the regime to the point of collapse. That might enable protesters and opposition forces in Iran, and possibly rogue elements of the Iranian army or even the Revolutionary Guard, to remove the Islamic Republic. This is very different from the original argumentation involving a better nuclear deal or even the threat of the ballistic missiles, which was always a little bit weak, because Netanyahu in Israel, for example, stated after the 12-day war in June that both of those threats had been removed for years. And of course, Trump himself was insisting after June that Iran's nuclear capability had been obliterated, and was very upset with intelligence estimates somewhat to the contrary. So it looks like Trump had boxed himself in, having promised the protesters that help is on its way in early January, and had amassed such an armada in the Middle East, with planes located now in Israel as well, that this amounted to a gun put on the table in the first act that inevitably by the end of the play is shot. And if this should actually come to pass, that the regime falls because of this joint Israeli-American action, it would be truly a historic event, one of the greatest achievements of the West in the past 50 years, perhaps number two only to the collapse of communism. So unworthy though many people might believe Trump and Netanyahu to be, they're engaged in an enterprise that has a lot of international support, even in Europe and also in the region.
Thank you, Dan. Please stay with us as we'll come back to you shortly. We're now being rejoined by Xavier. Thank you for staying with us, Xavier, and joining us for these latest developments of these breaking news. As we heard that Russia have now said that they urge for immediate halt to these strikes and have conversations with Abbas Araghachi. Do you think anything will come from these talks, or do you think this is going to definitely now still go on for days to come?
If the U.S. was willing to entertain negotiations in order to reach a deal with Iran, that once again, according to what the mediator, the Omani foreign minister, they were very close. He said perhaps 24 hours in order to reach an agreement. And yet he kept going into the dynamics of war. Perhaps that's a decision the U.S. has made, the U.S. with Israel, that is not going to change if Russia gets involved. I don't really think that Russia has, at this stage, any possibility of convincing the U.S. of changing the path. But what we are facing now is a situation where the region is being destabilized. There is an escalation all over the region. There are dozens of civilians already killed in Iran. And I don't think that people that actually want a change in Iran and are in Iran are actually going to support that. In order for that change to take place, the killing of civilians in Iran is going to happen.
Thank you, Xavier. Please stay with us as we'll come back to you shortly. There's some more breaking news for you now. Kuwait has confirmed that it intercepted missiles targeting a base housing US personnel. The missiles were reportedly launched towards the base but were successfully intercepted before reaching their target. The situation is undergoing investigation and further details are awaited. We are now being rejoined again by Dan Perry. Dan, thank you for staying with us and joining us here for this latest development. as we know, there have been strikes in Kuwait from the Italian airbase there, and now we hear that more strikes have happened, but they have been intercepted, targeting US personnel. What can we take from these strikes? How much this conflict is now starting to escalate, as we've heard before, it isn't just now targeting military bases, it's now also targeting, as we've heard, for schools, etc. Hi, Dan, thank you for joining us here on NewsX World. As we've heard, Kuwait has had some more strikes, but they have been intercepted. However, we knew before that more strikes had happened on an Italian airbase. What does these continuous strikes here tell us about this conflict?
Iran is clearly trying to project a determination and resilience. Their goal is going to be to somehow have the regime survive this onslaught. They are assuming that Trump does not have patience for a prolonged war. He famously dislikes long entanglements. And so they're just trying to strike back within reason to not look weak. So far, they haven't done anything that seems calibrated to escalate. They have fired 5 or 6 volleys at Israel, but everything has been intercepted. And as far as I can tell, they haven't gone after critical infrastructure. I think Iran would like to not escalate and merely survive, and in the very survival, they would be able to claim victory. Much depends on the veracity of reports coming out this morning that certain political and military leaders in Iran were killed. I think we'll know in coming days whether the regime is in any danger of collapse. If that should occur, it would take the form undoubtedly of street protest in Iran, of people seeking to exploit the instability created by the attacks to deal the regime a coup de grace. I heard the previous guest speaking of instability in the region and civilians killed, and obviously any civilian killed is a tragedy, and instability is never good. But realistically, in the grand scheme of things, in the past half century or so, the instability in the region and to an extent projected upon the world has come from the Islamic Republic. I'm not a naive believer in things Trump says, and it really is unfortunate that the US president is so given to fabulism that people don't believe even when he's telling the truth. Because in this particular case, like a broken clock that's right twice a day, Trump is speaking the absolute truth about the Islamic Republic. And what is even more astounding, so is Netanyahu. They're right in that if the regime should collapse, then the region will become more stable, not less so. And that is why in Israel, I can report that even though the people in Israel are very badly divided on almost any issue under the sun, and the government is extremely unpopular, and Netanyahu is behind in the polls by about 15 to 20%, on this one particular issue of the danger posed by Iran and the desirability of the removal of the Islamic Republic regime, there's near consensus in Israel. And I would say also that no matter what you hear in public from Arab leaders, they too would love to see this regime eliminated from the face of the earth, because Iran has provided the world with the only 2 justifications that really can exist for outside intervention for regime change. And that is a degree of heinous brutality towards their own people that cannot be tolerated because of the norm in international relations called R2P, the responsibility
Really,
to protect.
I'm sorry, Dan, we've just come from some more breaking news has just come in, but please stay with us. At least 3 large blasts have been heard over the Dubai area, sending shockwaves through the city. The blasts, which occurred earlier today, have raised concerns among residents and authorities. However, there are no immediate reports of injuries or damage. Emergency response teams are reportedly on standby, monitoring the situation. Regardless of the uncertainty, residents are being urged to stay alert. Meanwhile, security measures are being reinforced across the city. We're now being rejoined again by Xavier. Thank you, Xavier, for staying with us and joining us here for this breaking news. We've now, obviously, there's been strikes heard over in Dubai, and the more and more we go into this, the more we realise how many places in the Middle East are being attacked and having all of these strikes. Now, do you think Dubai or any other place in the Middle East are going to attack back? Do you think they are going to retaliate, or will they not?
We are to talk about what the statements have been coming out from Arab Gulf countries. They do have the right to retaliate in order to defend their own sovereignty, even though the information that has been coming out is that the targets have been U.S. military bases and not neighborhoods or any sort of targets for governments, whether in the United Arab Emirates or Qatar, Kuwait or Bahrain. Now, in all of this, of course, Arab countries continue calling for the situation to stabilize back. And I fully disagree with those who believe that if the US and Israel decide that it's right to attack Iran without a Security Council resolution, this is going to make things much better. We heard something very similar before the US-British invasion of Iraq, and we saw how the region didn't take us anywhere else. Once again, you don't have to be a supporter of the Iranian regime. In the Arab world, there are not many supporters of the Arab regime in order to understand that this attack is not going to stabilize the region.
Thank you, Xavier. Please, again, stay with us as we will join back with you shortly. There is some more breaking news coming in. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has condemned the Israel-US operation, calling it unprovoked, illegal and illegitimate. He stated that all sites involved in the operation are legitimate targets. He posted on X saying that Trump has turned America first into Israel first, which always means America last, according to him. We have some more breaking news coming in now. According to reports, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office confirmed that he is engaging in discussions with the leaders of France and Germany. This is reportedly a part of a series of calls with key allies aimed at strengthening diplomatic ties and coordinating efforts on pressing international issues. There is some more breaking news coming in now. Sirens are sounding across Israel once again as the Israeli military reports a new barrage of missiles launched towards the country. The situation remains tense and defense systems are actively responding. Further details about the attack and its impact are expected to emerge shortly. Some more breaking news for you now. The ruler of Qatar and Saudi Arabia's crown prince have called for an immediate halt to the escalation in the region. This urgent appeal was made during a phone call, according to a statement from the Qatari Emir's office. Both leaders emphasised the critical need to de-escalate tensions and prevent further violence. Furthermore, they stressed the importance of diplomatic efforts in resolving the ongoing conflict. That is all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.